everyone! Thanks to the fact that I do tend to film these videos in advance just in case anything happens and there's a week or two where I can't film, you know, like I get COVID. I am filming this in relatively early October and it will go live the day before Halloween. That's good for two reasons. Mostly because, as I said, I've recently had COVID and I still feel and look like a zombie. And also because Halloween is spooky season and I have been thinking about scary things I've been through and some of the scariest stuff I've ever done. I've just in general been asking myself the question, when have I been most terrified? See, this time of year you're going to get a lot of scary videos about ghosts and creepy places, but actually things that happen in everyday life can be genuinely terrifying. And I thought we'd talk about some of the scariest things that have happened to me. Like that time I almost rolled my car. For me personally, there are very few things scarier than suddenly and unexpectedly coming face to face with your own mortality. That's what happened to me early one very cold morning around 13 or 14 years ago. I was driving to work. This is me driving. We had had a really bad frost overnight, so the roads were kind of slippery. And at the time, I worked at a primary school, and to get there, I had to go round these tiny little narrow lanes, one of which contained a right angle bend. It was a really bad bend. You could not go round it fast, and being a fairly sensible driver, I never did go round it fast. This particular morning, however, a tractor had obviously been out on the road before me and had left a load of mud all over this road, which had iced over with the morning frost. And even though I was going exceptionally slowly around the bend, my tyre hit this icy slush that had formed on the road. And the next thing you know, my car became some sort of pinball machine. Seriously, I was going from this side of the road to that side of the road to this side of the road to that side of the road. I was literally just doing this with the car. I completely lost control. I ended up upwards in a hedge. Like I said, it's a right angle bend. You can't see anything coming from either direction as you're going round it. So the entire time that I'm sort of sat there like this in the car thinking, oh, this isn't right. I just kept thinking, if someone comes around the bend right now, they are gonna smash into the back of me and things are gonna get worse. I managed to very shakily phone for help, and when I was rescued, the guy who came in his pickup truck, he basically told me,
"Oh, you've been going like half a mile faster when you hit that bit. You would have flipped your car onto its roof and you'd be upside down right now."
Thank you for telling me. Amazingly, not only was the car not a write-off, I wasn't even injured, which was incredible, but it was pretty terrifying to be in an accident like that, and I don't want to be in one like it again. Speaking of facing your own mortality, I think the scariest things that have happened to me mostly are the times when I have suddenly thought, oh, I'm gonna die. Recently, when I had COVID and my oxygen levels were really through the floor and I couldn't catch my breath, I remember thinking, oh, this is how I go. And that wasn't fun. And that leads me to the second topic worthy of the title, the scariest thing that's ever happened to me, and that is having surgery or going for an unexpected trip to the hospital. I've had surgery twice in my life. The first time when I was only about 20, maybe 21, I had a bone graft from down here up to up here. And that was exceptionally painful and yeah, not fun. And then obviously a couple of years back, I had my laparoscopy, which I made a vlog about right here on this channel. Surgery is one of those weird things because if you haven't had it, you kind of build it up into this big horrendous, scary thing. And in reality, you're not awake for it. So you kind of get scared beforehand, but then the actual process, you know nothing about. But the build up to it, when you're sort of sat or lying in hospital and thinking, oh, aren't we going down to theatre soon? That's genuinely terrifying. I mean, for me, the anxiety about going down to have surgery, and then of course the waking up from it and dealing with all the fallout that comes from having an operation, you know, the recovery time, any kind of weird side effects from the anesthesia, that is not nice either. And I'm completely non-judgmental of people who just decide to have lots and lots of cosmetic surgery, but that's never gonna be me. Yeah, I'd love a smaller nose and maybe even a facelift, but unless you can get gentle little fairies to do it by magic, stay the hell away from me. I'm only having surgery if I have to. But at least with most surgeries, you know that you're going to go and have them. You've been to the doctors, you've been discussing a problem, they've come up with a plan of action, you get your surgery date, you go in, it's all expected. The times when you end up in hospital when you're not expecting to, they're pretty scary. As most people who've watched this channel for a while know, I am severely asthmatic, and there have been times when I've had an asthma attack and I just can't catch my breath no matter how many times I take my inhaler. I mean, you can hear at the moment, post-COVID, I'm still bleh, and I'm needing my Ventolin a lot. But there are times when my Ventolin just doesn't quite do the job. And on those occasions, sometimes the only thing that works is I have to go to hospital and go on a nebulizer and just have oxygen through a mask. And there is nothing that makes you feel more vulnerable than not being able to breathe properly and sort of sitting in a hospital with a mask on being like, you know, some sort of Poundland Darth Vader. That really makes you confront your vulnerability in a way that is not fun. But the thing is, we are being very negative about this whole scariest things I've ever done thing. I mean, yeah, sure, near-death experiences are scary, but not all scary things are bad. Some scary things are a lot of fun. Yep, I'm talking about thrill-seeking. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I absolutely love that feeling of butterflies in your tummy, thinking what's about to happen, and then something exciting happening. I love that sensation of not quite knowing whether or not you're in control. Some people hate that. For me, it is addictive. Two of the scariest things I've ever done were also two of the best things I've ever done. So first of all, when I turned 30, I went to Alton Towers with a group of friends and my sister and Kim. And the one ride I said I would not go on was a roller coaster called Oblivion. Oblivion is quite a short roller coaster really. You just go up, 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 very, very high. You pause at the top and then you drop vertically into a black hole. I had watched videos of it on YouTube. I had sort of read about it and I was like, I'm quite brave when it comes to roller coasters, but I'm not doing that. And then we were at Alton Towers, we'd spent the day, I'd been on pretty much every other big roller coaster there. I don't think the Smiler existed then, and actually the Smiler is one I don't fancy because it goes upside down too many times and I don't like being dizzy, but you know. I'd been on everything else that wasn't going to make me throw up from dizziness anyway. And we were walking back towards the car and my sister looked at Oblivion and was like, hang on a minute, we got you a fast track pass so you don't have to queue for anything. Surely you're going to go on that, right? And I was like, no. And Michelle and Kim sort of grabbed a hand each and were like, yes, you are. And the three of us went on it. And I remember the entire time going up the lift hill just thinking, oh God, this was a terrible, terrible mistake. And when they hang you over the edge and you can see this vertical drop, your tummy is like, you know, somewhere up here. And you're thinking, oh God. And then we dropped and it was just the most incredible sensation. And I just remember as soon as we got off, I wanted to do it again. And I got a similar sensation several years later when I used to work for the nursery chain I used to work for. We went on a team building day out to a place called Adrenaline Quarry. And they had this big swing, and it's not like a swing like where you sit on and you hold on like this, la 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 la. It was this weird contraption where you basically have your arms attached to a wooden beam and you're harnessed, and you get raised up and your legs are dangling and your arms are just sort of like this in place. And you get raised up really, really, really high, and then they say, we'll drop you after the count of 3. And it's sort of like 1, 2, and they never get to 3, they just drop you. And the next thing you know is you just fall and you go out over this massive quarry, and it is insane. I loved it, but it just felt like flying, and I've always wanted to be able to fly, which is a bit strange, but I'm a bit strange. Genuinely, as we were being raised up over this quarry, knowing that we were going to be dropped, I was thinking, holy hell, this is absolutely horrendous, I'm terrified. But as soon as we were dropped, I was like, yes! So yeah, scary doesn't necessarily mean bad. Sometimes scary is a lot of fun. But I freely admit that we are talking about a lot of stereotypical stuff. Of course it's normal to be scared if you're in a car accident. Of course it's normal to be scared if you have to go to hospital. It's normal to be scared if you go on a big roller coaster or, thrill-seeking ride. That's what they're built for. They're built to get your adrenaline going and make you feel scared. I am an odd person. I'm very socially awkward, and to be honest, some of the things that scare me most in life are things that other people just do. Stuff like make an important phone call or attend an event where they don't know anybody else. That's the sort of thing that would break me out in hives. Anything where I have to pretend I'm a competent human, basically. Having said that, sometimes pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, as scary as it is, can lead to amazing consequences. For example, just over a decade ago, I released some children's books and I did an interview on local radio about them. And the interview went really, really well. So well that the DJ asked me if I fancied becoming his co-host. He had a co-host, but she had decided to drop her mornings, because it was a breakfast show, down from 5 mornings a week to 4. And he was like, would you like to do the Friday morning breakfast show with me? I think you would be good at it. And a part of me had always fancied having a go at being a radio DJ. So I was like, yes, I will absolutely do this, even though it meant I had to get up at a hideous time in the morning. The thing is, if you are a very socially awkward person, the absolute scariest thing that could possibly happen to you is making a mistake in a very big public arena. And that's what I did. This is going to sound completely obvious, but if you are a radio DJ and you are broadcasting to listeners around the county, you can't play songs with swearing in them. That's basically just, rule number 1. And there I was, one of my first full mornings as the co-host, and one of my jobs was to read the news and the weather. It was a very small station. We did a lot of jobs. And after I'd read the news and the weather, I would play a jingle, play a song, and then the main DJ would take over for a bit. And I was allowed to pick what I'd like to play. Again, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you will know the reason it's called Mrs. Manics is because I am a massive Manic Street Preachers fan, and I was searching through the database of songs that they had to see what Manic songs they had, and they had one called Roses in the Hospital. Roses in the hospital, try to pull my fingernails out. Now it was released as a single in the 90s, but they had to change the words because the album version contains a line that rhymes with "We don't want your ducking love." And in the single version, they just repeated the title. They said Roses in the Hospital instead. So I thought, well, obviously this is going to be the single version. Duh, it's a database of songs you can play on public radio. So I did the news, did the weather, did my little jingle, and then led into, and now the Manic Street Preachers with Roses in the Hospital. And I was really enjoying listening to that song, just feeling like, yeah, I'm good at this DJ lark. Oh, maybe I'll apply to the BBC. And that's when I just, loudly heard them go, "We don't want you." I had to pull the song off air and apologise. I wanted to crawl inside myself and turn inside out somehow. And if you're thinking, oh, don't worry, Emma, I bet that's the only mistake you ever made whilst you were a radio DJ. No, it wasn't. You see, I'm also a giggler. And like I said, it was my job to read the news and the weather. And for some reason, I don't even remember what it was that got me, something made me giggle whilst I was reading the news. I giggled a lot. I giggled so much, I snorted and could not speak. And my co-host, whose show it actually was, had to take over reading the news whilst I just literally cried with laughter next to him. Amazingly, he actually left, not because of me, I swear, and they asked me to take over the breakfast show on my own. I don't know what I would have had to have done more wrong to have been sacked, but for some reason they were like, you're good at this, carry on. I couldn't because I had got a new job and it was gonna mean that I couldn't do the radio show anymore, but you know, one of my biggest fears is making a big tit of myself in public, and I did that a lot. That said, I would absolutely host a radio show again. I really enjoy radio. I've got the face for it. So yeah, while you're looking at videos of vampires and goblins and ghosts this Halloween, let's remember that sometimes the scariest things that can happen are just us being dumb. What's the scariest thing you've ever done? Is it something that you were terrified of but turned out to be amazing? Or is it something that was like a near-death experience and you lived to tell the tale? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. You can click on my floaty head if you would like to subscribe. And last week's video is over there. I'm gonna go rest my voice because let me tell you, COVID has done a number on it. And I'll talk to you next week. Bye!